committee meeting for Wednesday, October the 16th, 2013. We are missing our chair today, Councilman Busquiano, but the rest of the committee is here and ready. Is that true, Mr. Cedillo?
Yes, we are, sir.
Are we ready to roll? Okay, we are going to continue. I'm sorry, let's dispose of these two consent items, 2 and 5. Councilman, without objection?
Without objection.
Okay, those will move on consent. We've been asked to continue items 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, and 4.
So moved.
Which takes us to item 6. Mr. Clerk, would you read that item for us, please?
Item number 6 is a motion from Council Members Labange and O'Farrell relative to measures which address providing meal service to individuals in the public right-of-way.
Okay. Let's see if we can get a staff report. Councilmember Labange is here. Is there any staff? Okay, Mr. Labange, your staff this afternoon. Would you like to
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
enlighten us on this item?
Good.
Your initiative?
Situation is, this has been part of several council districts with redistricting. It became part of our district. With that being said, we want to reach out and help. But the situation has overwhelmed the industrial community as well as the neighborhood next to the cement plant and all the activity that takes place there. What we're asking for is some guidance from our city attorney and other departments as stated in the motion, and also to give some direction to this very worthy organization so we find some options for them off the street. You may hear from the city attorney. You may hear from other members of the community as well. I'll take that all into consideration. And just for expertise here, my deputy, Tracy James, right here. Tracy, please, because the other deputy is still coming. Just give a little background of your involvement in your outreach. This is Tracy James, deputy.
Hi, Tracy, please.
Thank you very much.
What's the record state your name?
My name is Tracy James. I'm a deputy in Councilman Labange's office. I'm relatively new to this issue, and I wish our other deputy was here to give a better background.
It's okay. It's not a new issue, unfortunately.
I know. Well, the Food Coalition, while well-intentioned in providing a service, has also wreaked havoc on a community, on a neighborhood that has children, elderly people. They've really come under attack lately, as have the businesses, and they are just overburdened and overwhelmed with the nightly feedings. I think that we at our office believe that while the Food Coalition is well-meaning in its want to help people, there is a better place for them, and it's not on this location. It's not
in the streets.
On the streets, and we would like them to not be there. The community is very overwhelmed and unhappy, as it's understandably.
And you've done outreach. I'm just trying to help because she's not a general public speaker, Ms. James. Outreach to other organizations.
We have, and
such
we would.
as PATH and others. Please give.
We have. We have encouraged the Food Coalition to maybe partner up with a church, for example. Look for other locations. They have been rejected. Nothing that we have shown them so far has been to their liking. I'm not sure exactly what the criteria is. Sometimes it's too far east. Sometimes it's not big enough. We would like to help. We would like to move them, and we don't feel that they have any intention of moving, really. So it's been challenging.
And our successes be as we have really transformed from just pushing people out, which we don't want to do. We want to push people in. We want to raise the bar. When we do it in the street, the health issues that are very prevalent, there's no restroom facilities, there's nothing, there's no washing of hands, as you would see in some institution, such as a church, such as an outreach center, etc. And we are happy to work with the Food Coalition. We want to just take these steps to try to resolve the problem that this neighborhood didn't ask for. Okay, so that
It is a problem, not just in this neighborhood.
Every
but-
neighborhood
but
that
all
they have
over.
this, right.
And we know there are many well-meaning, well-committed organizations and individuals to try to address this problem.
Right.
And I think the motion asks the city attorney to do a little research. Mr. City Attorney, any comments or thoughts on the motion?
Yeah, Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel for the City Attorney's Office. We're still looking into this issue and also working with our Bureau of Street Services. I mean, the kind of outreach and the efforts that the council office has been engaged in, we totally support. It's much better to use those kinds of means rather than a stick. But we're prepared to conduct further research and fashion that stick if need be, but look at all possible alternatives. The bottom line is that public streets, the public rights-of-way are not appropriate places for this kind of activity. But we recognize its importance in what they're doing. No one questions the cause that the group is trying to support. It's just a matter that we're actively looking into. I don't have anything more specific to get into right now.
In the
But
East
it is
Hollywood area, just to let you know, on Edgemont and Fountain, right there, there's a church that opens its doors that we work with. That's in Mr. O'Farrell's district. Also, St. Thomas, which is over on Gardner Street and Hollywood Boulevard. In the west area we work with. We want to just get this off the street into an institution so there'll be a better opportunities, not for other impact that can be given for the lives of people who are severely challenged at this time.
Absolutely. I think it's important to note that this motion asks the city attorney to collaborate with all stakeholders, other agencies, groups, and individuals to make sure that we get all the information possible. We have several speakers. Let's take that testimony. First up, Lynn Ludwig, followed by Ted Landreth and Michael Wolf. And asking that you keep your comments to 2 minutes. Come on up, Lynn.
Yep.
Pick a seat, any seat.
Who do I address?
You can address the committee.
Hi, I have a business down the street. I've been there for about, I've been
Scoot up,
there
please.
approximately 35 years. The homeless have been there that 25 approximately. I don't find them to be horrendous sure, they walk to get to the places. They walk like you. They have to get places. I'm sorry if they're not dressed in beautiful clothing. C'est la vie. For the most part, they've been fed at the corner. They've been have had medical and also clothing. It sort of keeps the city from having to spend money. It is a service that is extremely well needed. As far as, yes, have I lost business from them being there? Certainly. I used to have 38 employees at one time. Yes, people are afraid of the homeless, and I don't care if they're on Hollywood Boulevard. I don't care if they're on our street. I don't care if they're in Beverly Hills. People just are afraid. So what are you going to do? I cannot help a person who's afraid of a dog either. Talking of dogs, most people would take in a dog rather than help the homeless. It's a sort of a sad state of affairs of what's happening in our country at this point, that people don't care about human beings. There's something wrong, something really sick. You can only eat 3 hamburgers a day. And these businesses, we're there from 5 to 7. And I say we're because I've been helping out here and there occasionally. We're there from 5 to 7. And I was helping out with some clothing yesterday. And I think I saw 3 people. And I saw 5 cars. Now, that is not an exorbitant amount of anything on that street.
Okay,
As
so-
far as what's needed is a restroom and one guard.
All right.
And that's all we need.
Thank you for your comment. Let me just remind the audience, the action we're taking today is, the proposal is to refer this to the city attorney's office, who will then convene a cross-section of city departments to try to come up with a solution. City departments and individuals, agencies, organizations, okay? So the motion today is just to refer this to the city attorney for some follow-up. Okay. Ted Landreth, please come forward, followed by Michael Wolf.
I would ask that you allow me 4 minutes instead of 2. I am here to represent the West Hollywood Food Coalition, which is the principal target of this motion, and I was among the founders of the Food Coalition 26 years ago.
Can't hear you.
Give me 4 minutes, I'd be grateful to you. I have prepared remarks, I'll read them as fast
If you can, okay. All right, that's fine.
My name is Ted Landreth. I represent the greater
Pull
West
it
Hollywood.
up a little bit. Pull the microphone up a little bit, sir. There you go.
My name is Ted Landreth. I represent the Greater West Hollywood Food Coalition, the principal target of the motion now under discussion. And I would like to read a prepared statement. The Food Coalition is a volunteer organization which has served what we call a hot, fresh, and nutritious meal to the homeless and hungry every night since March of 1987 for the past 23 years at the industrial intersection of Sycamore and Romaine in Hollywood. A number of Food Coalition volunteers are here with me, as are volunteers of our sister organization, the GWHFC UCLA Mobile Clinic, which we helped to found in 2001. We come in peace. We have always been interested in peace, but we seem to live in a world at war against the homeless as a class of people and against ordinary citizens like us who meet them on their turf and give them the emergency support and encouragement they need to survive the horrors of life in the street, and then one by one to get off the street into decent apartments of their own choosing. If you'd like to know more about us as peaceful citizens, I would suggest you talk to Deputy Chief of Police Mike Downing, who came to know us very well when he was the commander of the Hollywood Division. With his help, we kept the peace with residential and business neighbors in the community, and 5 major businesses near Sycamore and Romaine became supporters of ours, as they are to this day. Len Luswick is one of them. You could also talk to Captain Beatrice Girmala, who just left the job of commander in Hollywood to come to headquarters. 4 years ago, for the space of 2 years, she actively participated in a dialogue with the neighbors, which she had helped to initiate. I will never forget her saying at the end of one of our meetings with the neighbors that all they seemed to do was complain. At least we were doing something. The commanders of the Hollywood and Wilshire divisions of the LAPD know almost as much as we do about the homeless who live in our community, because like us, their officers deal with them in the street where they live, and they treat them as individuals, not as a monstrous, faceless mob. Over the space of the past 5 months, with the encouragement of Councilman LaBonge and his staff, the homeless people we serve have been painted as a monstrous, faceless mob, and all of them as a group have been accused of being violent criminals and drug addicts and hopelessly mentally ill. This on the basis of an outbreak of rumor and hate speech disseminated by a dozen or so angry neighbors who refuse to speak to us, have never been to Sycamore and Romaine to meet our clients or to see what we do for them, and who for the most part have arrogated to themselves, without evidence of any kind to support them, the right to determine who belongs in their neighborhood and who doesn't. Never has a group of Americans been so viciously defamed as have the clients of the Greater West Hollywood Food Coalition. That said, we come in peace. 4 weeks ago, Councilman LaBonge said on KNBC News that he intended to get all the parties together, as Chief Downing and Captain Girmala had in the past. so that we could sort out our differences, and ideally so that we could work together to help the people we are now helping. We would like nothing better. Not simply because we ourselves have been wholly unsuccessful in our efforts to reach this current cabal of angry neighbors, but because based on our experience of 26 years, we believe strongly that most of them would take a very different view of what we do and who we're doing it for if they were to talk to us and then come to Sycamore and Romaine.
Out of respect for others, sir, if you could summarize, we appreciate.
Summarize 26 years, Councilman. I have about 1 minute to go, okay? I'll read faster.
All right, I appreciate it, sir.
That, it would seem to me, to be the American thing to do, to assert, as Chief Downing did years ago, that the homeless who live in our midst are citizens too, that they all have the same rights as we do, and most particularly the right to be judged as individuals. It is our belief, and not incidentally the belief of the American Civil Liberties Union, that the legislation contemplated by the motion you are now discussing would be unconstitutional. A federal court in Florida found that to be the case just 2 weeks ago. And I would be surprised if City Attorney Mike Fuhr, who was a supporter of the Food Coalition when he was on the City Council, wouldn't take the same position. I would like to pass out a copy of this statement as well as a number of other documents referring to us and what we do. One is a letter from Helen Pallett, the founder of City Harvest in New York and Angel Harvest here. Another is a letter from Lynn Leswick, from whom you've just heard. Another is a letter from one of the founders of the UCLA Mobile Clinic, now a PhD, MPH, still working at UCLA to make our society work better. And another is the announcement of a prestigious award given this year to the Mobile Clinic by the Los Angeles Business Journal. Enclosed with the above documents is a copy of a black and gold business card which we give to random homeless people we encounter other than at Sycamore and Romaine, and which we also give to potential volunteers. You will note that it has on it the URL to our website. Finally, all of us volunteers live very busy lives, and it is remarkable that we can eke out the 2 or 3 hours it takes to do what we do, each of us deployed in our kitchen or in the serving of our nightly meal once a week. We are doctors and lawyers and producers and actors and writers and artists and musicians and professional chefs and undergraduates and graduate students. We are also secondary school students and elementary school students with their parents. Some of us are even aspiring politicians. I think more of us would be if we were to encounter more politicians standing with us, both in person and in spirit, at Sycamore and Romaine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your comments and for your commitment. Michael Wolf, and may I ask also that Mary Ramirez and Rick Howard, would you come forward?
Good afternoon. My name's Michael Wolf. Thank you for your time. I'll try and be brief. A property owner along with my wife on Sycamore Avenue. We were forced to move out of the neighborhood because of the situation there. We rent the property now, and I can say that as far as the neighborhood is concerned, their motives notwithstanding, it's been an unmitigated disaster. We're not making this up. There have been drug problems. We've had break-ins when we were building a house on our property. People defecated in the bathtub. When the house next to ours went unrented for a while, it was foreclosed on. People every night were living in the backyard. Our neighbors, our tenants had to call the police numerous times. They've had people on the property. There's people camping in their vans on Romaine, east of the Food Coalition. It's been an absolute disaster. You know, Ted was on the television the other night, and he was quoted as saying, "We meet them in the street where most of them live, and we do that on purpose because it's better for them, easier for them, and it works out better in the long run. We're not keeping them in the street, we're getting to know them." Now, I'd like to ask, is it better for them to eat on a filthy curbside with no bathroom, no sink to wash up, or is it better for them to be moved to an indoor facility where they can sit down and wash up? We've been working this problem for well over a decade, and nothing's been done. Ted, we've gotten together with Ted, with Captain Farrell and Captain Gramala, and we're just kicking the can down the road and have been for a long time. The sheer number of the homeless people in close proximity to the residential area pose a tremendous and chronic safety risk to our neighborhood. Instead of a tranquil, family-friendly atmosphere, we're confronted with an unsavory environment. The area has been referred to Skid Row West in the past by a president of a neighborhood council. I don't know how one person can run the roost and affect one neighborhood so detrimentally for so many years, and we don't seem to be able to get anything done. It's time for them to relocate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Mary Ramirez.
Yes, I'd like to have some comments to that. Since I was a homeless person and lived in a motorhome with my late husband for many years, I'm making this very brief. We were parked on a corner in the valley. A man came out of his house. He said, "Get my husband out of the nearest crack house." My husband weighed 420 pounds, and he was not on crack. This says some of the discrimination of the homeless that's been going on. My main reason I'm here is I have been a client of the mobile clinic. I was going through a late menopause. My period had started. I was very in shock. They had got me to a woman's clinic, which did tests on me. And there were other things that have gone on. They have given me clothing, and they have given me other clinics to go to. I had high blood pressure, and I was able to go to the free clinic at Shabam. I have gotten into that, which I have not been able to get into it. Plus, their food has gotten better. It's gotten tastier. Things are better. I was there 3 nights ago, and there are no problems. There have been problems before, but these people are cleaning it up. The medical students are given training. There are many things that you don't consider that are going on. And if they weren't there, where were these medical students be able to be trained? But with homeless people don't go in to see people. They're scared. They're scared of being caught. They have doctors. They have social workers. Many homeless people do not want to come in and see social workers. They will get off the streets when they're able to. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chairman, my Committee of Energy and Environment is next door. I'll be back in 15 minutes. I'm going to get the quorum for them, and I'll be back.
Fine, thank you.
Want to conclude some remarks afterwards. My staff is here to take notes.
Excellent. Mr. Howard.
Hi, I'm Rick Howard. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Occidental Entertainment Group, and we own about 36 properties in and around the Hollywood area. We have a dozen sound stages and a lighting and grip company and a prop company. And I'd like to just kind of give the perspective of some of the business owners in the area. We have about a dozen properties that are right there at the Romaine and Sycamore area, right where the food line meets. And without exception, each of our tenants complain about things like every day on a daily basis they'll find feces and urine and vomit on their properties. They'll find discarded hypodermic needles. They'll find used condoms. Cars are broken into. There's fights in the streets. There are trash bins that are set on fire. And as a result of these kinds of continuing problems, we've had tenants that have moved out and have refused to renew their leases. Our tenants who have subtenants, they've lost tenants. One of our major clients is a recording studio who services the biggest recording artists in the nation. Justin Timberlake, Lady Gaga, Madonna, everyone, Black Eyed Peas. And they're losing business. They have people that will not come back to their facilities because they're afraid to go to their cars at night. We, as a company, have invested millions of dollars into this area, trying to renovate buildings and bring quality tenants and clients into the area. And because the food line meets outdoors and we have over 100 homeless and transient persons wandering our neighborhood, it's been very difficult for us. That being said, we strongly support organizations like PATH. The Gay and Lesbian Center has a shelter for homeless teenagers right up the street from us. We welcome them into our community because they're indoor facilities where homeless people can not only get a meal, they can also wash their hands and use the restroom, find a place to stay. They can get the social services that they need to truly get off the streets. I have here a petition that we threw together in just the last couple of days. It's signed by 20 people, businesses in the area. Would it be possible to submit that?
Yes, why don't you submit that? We will take that part of your testimony.
We would just ask you to support Councilmember Labange's motion and move it quickly through your committee.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Next up, again, if you'll join us at the table, Claire Bronowski, Richard Spencer, and Dan Garza. Is Richard Spencer here? Would you please come up, sir? And Dan Garza, please join us at the table. Claire?
Good afternoon. My name is Claire Bronowski, and I'm here representing the property owner at 936 La Brea, which is the corner of La Brea and Romaine. And we are also here to express our concerns about the lack of facilities and security for the operation, even though we support its motives. We worked for 5 to 7 years with the former councilman's office to do a new development, to redevelopment an existing building, to support the media-related businesses. We've invested millions of dollars in a property that's just about to finish construction, and we're very concerned about security. We have break-ins almost nightly. We have 24-hour security on our construction site, and yet very difficult to keep the area safe. And of course, we're concerned for our future tenants, and I have a letter to submit. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Richard Spencer.
You know, in light of everything, it's really sad that we have to have a meeting like this about what do we do with the homeless, the hungry, and the hurting. Do we really need to make a decision on this? I mean, they've been on that corner, well, 10 years before I ever got there, and they seem to be doing a good job. They feed people. I would say the meals they get there are almost restaurant quality. They get some of the best food donated from some of the very finest restaurants that you probably eat at. And they are trying to, but they can't do everything, you know, finding rooms for people and bathrooms and all that kind of stuff. The city can, but they don't have any money either. But here we have an opportunity to do something. But what I think what we're going to do is find a way to run from it, which is sad. They've been there for 27 years. Why can't the city just help them out, and the neighborhood help them out? All I hear is that, you know, the drugs, and that's all throughout the city. Not just Sycamore and Romaine. I'm not saying that there isn't any, but I'm just saying there is an opportunity for the city to do something rather than walk away from it.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Let me invite up to the table Joseph Thomas, Anthony easy for you to say, and Mike Malik. You'll join us at the table. Joseph?
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Thomas. I'm a resident up here downtown. I'm a member of LA CAN. I'm a Vietnam vet of 6 years, 63 years old, and I'm homeless. Now, this myth they're talking about, what we are about, drugs and all that, do I look homeless? What is homeless supposed to look like? At the same time, nobody died and made any individual God, and no man has the right to stand up and tell any other man, you do not have the right to eat. That's my rule.
Thank you.
Now,
Please, let's refrain from applause. Take stand from the speaker. Yes, sir.
because of the system, this establishment here, along with other establishments such as yourself, perpetrated this back in the 80s when you wouldn't listen to us, and when the homeless were sleeping right here in City Hall, and I have photos to that effect. And at the same time, the county is saying now, we're taking the food stamps away. We're gonna cut them down. Then your establishment over here is saying you don't have the right to eat. So if that's not a consolidation, what the hell is it? And that's all we got to say. But one thing we're going to say is no one is going to take food out of our mouths. No one is going to tell us when we can eat and when we cannot eat. And that's just the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anthony Spampanato.
Well, it's good to see you. My name is Anthony Spampanato. There is no myth about the homeless. I was homeless for a couple of times. I spent a year and a half living on the beach. I live in my car as present. I was a volunteer at this great volunteer organization, the Greater West Hollywood Food Coalition. I served, I cooked, I drove, I did pickups, I did repairs. I spent all of last year, 2012, watching some of the core volunteers take most of their donations and distribute amongst themselves. I watched van loads of donations from Fresh and Easy, from Starbucks, from kind-hearted companies, corporations who donate. I watched those donations get sold, traded for drugs. Oh, and some of those volunteers, Ted Landris said, oh, yeah, our volunteers come from all walks of life. They pose as volunteers but are paid employees. They get a paycheck under the table with no withholding, no state taxes taken out. I'd welcome the attorney's office to take a look into their account for the last 5 years, to look at the paychecks, weekly paychecks of Kerwin Harris, Sam Sobey, Cordell Sherrod. This has gone on past 5 years, this great organization. Now, homeless people go to every food place there is per day. 10 o'clock breakfast, 9 o'clock this, 1 o'clock this, 4 o'clock that, 6. I see the same people at every line. So if Ted wants you to believe that in the demise of this great West Hollywood Food Coalition, that if they go away, that people are going to go hungry, I'm here to say no, they won't. And my accusations here are not accusations, and I'm prepared to testify under oath about the withholding taxes in any court, should we pursue that. People are posing as just business owners. Lynn pays $2,000 a month for rent on their kitchen. She's not just a business owner. She has a vested interest in that coalition. All right? So I'm ready to get dirty when you guys are.
All right, thank you. Thank you, sir. Please, ma'am. Please. Officer, would you please help us maintain order? Okay, next up, let me invite up Mike Malik, Jessica Chavez, and Peter Nicholas.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Omahan. I'm representing Mike Malik, our president of the board of directors for the Hollywood Media District in Hollywood. I'm also representing our constituency in the media district. Our board of directors had passed a position statement back some time ago and updated it this spring. I have a copy for the file. And basically we are speaking here today, as Mike would say to you. We support Councilmember Lamange's and O'Farrell's motion to move forward with this initiative.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessica Chavez. I live in the neighborhood. I am a mother. I'd like to say that I am not anti-homeless. I think what we need to focus on is that this venue is not the appropriate location. Not talking about shutting down the GWHFC. We're talking about moving it to an appropriate location. I walk with my son around the neighborhood. I have come in contact with gentlemen urinating in the street. I've been exposed to their penis, so has my son. I have been exposed to men's erections pulling their pants down in front of me and my son. This is not something that I feel comfortable with in my neighborhood. I feel held hostage in my home when gentlemen come onto my property and go through my blue bins right outside my son's window. I politely ask them to leave. I tell them that I take my trash out on Thursdays. They're welcome to come by and take the cans and bottles, whatever they need. They give no respect to me. They shout profanities at me, words that I do not want my 18-month-old who repeats everything to hear. So I'm feeling not safe in my neighborhood. I think one of the things that I focus on is when we have a food festival in public, there's always porta potties that's needed. The San Gennaro Festival, there's always porta potties there. I'm not sure why this does not have those kind of facilities, why there's no rule for that. Also, I just want to highlight this is it's not well-rounded in this location. At nighttime, my husband and I have to play the game, was that a gunshot or a firecracker? It's just these types of things. This is another highlight, another exposure that's a symptom of what's happening because of this, and it's prevalent.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Peter?
Yes. Hello. My name is Peter Nichols. I'm founder of Melrose Action Neighborhood Watch, a public safety organization with over 2,200 members located in the Melrose District of Los Angeles. I'm here to voice our support for Councilmember Labange's motion and to speak why such an ordinance is so badly needed, finally. Okay. From the perspective of public safety, unabated free meal lines operated by quasi-groups or individuals who think they do not in fact pose a threat to public safety in general. Not only are they unhealthy for the people that they intend to serve, but they lack any type of service structure or aftercare, and the overdue burden is then placed upon not only the community at large, but I'd like to point out various city departments, including and not limited to sanitation, street services, the taxed resources of the Los Angeles Police Department that were brought up here earlier, our city administration, who here we are at this hearing, and such as our council districts 4 and 5, and not to mention the county of Los Angeles as well. I'd like to also say our community does have a heart. Many of us here who have been mischaracterized do a lot of philanthropic work and various social service organizations in the city and volunteer our time each and every day to help those who need help. We have exasperated our own resources and free donated time in professional mediation with this one group that operates at the curbside in our area at Sycamore and Romaine. We, the community, organized sit-down meetings, instigated house locations to be found, and offered a professional nonprofit status through mediation, all again to no avail to this group. Here we sit today with no resolution or relief but from this ordinance. Clearly, the city of West Hollywood saw the light in 1990 when it too passed its own ordinance restricting public feeding and resorted to a voucher system still in place today. Clearly, they felt the egregious impacts of these operations that have no system of aftercare in place whatsoever, and that those that operate them somehow feel empowered to trump the law, trump the complaints, and the mediation that, for what they are doing for the down and out, somehow trumps its responsibility to be a well-run machine that works professionally to mitigate potential issues before they occur, not an attempt on their own to be their own police force, etc. These types of operations just don't work. They do work for the hour or two that they are there, but there's the aftermath that they are grossly negligent about. A neighbor told me that they met with the executive director of SSG, Dr. Hart Tanaka, who said bluntly, "I'm surprised that the Bureau of Street Services hadn't acted sooner on this operation at Sycamore and Romaine, and that his other groups under his 501c3 had been pressed to adhere to the laws of the city." Well, I asked for the same for this group, and they not be given any more exemption. I implore you to act to protect not only the people that are in fact in need of assistance, and some of them that are here today I sympathize with, and to help them receive better, more substantive care in and at a facility.
Please summarize, if you could, sir.
Okay.
Wrap up.
To protect their welfare and to watch out for them while watching out for our communities in Los Angeles. These are well-intended efforts. Let's make them better. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call up to the table Diane Demetris, John Ladner, and David Bass, please.
My name is Diane, and I have been a resident of North Sycamore Avenue since 1989. I am in support of this city ordinance for the balance, safety, and health it promises to bring to neighborhoods. The lifeblood of Los Angeles is in the individual neighborhoods, and ours is becoming unraveled and desperately need your help. My family, a little bit about me, my family volunteers to our temple, to PASS, to outreach programs. We're actively involved with SOVA. My children volunteer there. Our neighborhood food bank on North La Brea, just a block north of our house. We wholeheartedly support well-run social services for our homeless and transient populations, and there are many in our West Hollywood adjacent neighborhood. This is not about being an angry neighbor. I am not an angry neighbor. We live by the rules, we pay our taxes, and everyone else should live by the rules too. What we found that is our walking-friendly historic Melrose neighborhood is out of balance, outnumbered, and has become unfriendly and dangerous for walkers, school children, shoppers, merchants, and residents because we have lived with an unsupported, unaccountable food line for over 20 years operating one block from our homes. We are tired and we are afraid. What began as a noble philosophy to feed the homeless has become a nightmare in execution, and the population in the last 20 years has outgrown this venue. We feel that this one attracts a criminal element. There's lots of evidence in my yard, in my alley, that robbery, burglary, assault, prostitution, and drug dealing are happening. Right now, my husband just texted me a picture. There's someone in our alley sleeping. We're afraid he's going to get hit by the car. They wait for the food line because I've spoken to them. I did meet with Ted Landreth. He did talk to me. I did talk to him in a very civil way, and he tried to convince me that if the neighborhood only embraced the people that were denizens of the food line, that they would be the best neighbors we ever had. I'm unconvinced. Balance needs to be brought back to our area. A safety net of comprehensive social services provided by already existing neighborhood organizations will be supported by these neighbors and this neighborhood because everyone benefits from infrastructure and accountability. We support this ordinance and we need your help. Thank you for your support. I have petitions here from the neighbors.
If you'll give them to the clerk, and again, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Mr. Ladner?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you. My name is John Ladner. I'm on the board of several nonprofit organizations serving the homeless community in Hollywood. I also participated with Councilman Labange's task force in an attempt to find a better solution for the environment in which the West Hollywood Food Coalition feeds the homeless. I commend Councilman Labange's efforts. I commend all his staff. I don't think it's his fault, and I don't think it's Mr. Landreth's fault that they are still finding it necessary to feed desperate people on the streets. I think that we should take this opportunity, and I really thank Councilmember Labange for bringing this opportunity to you. I think we should take this opportunity instead of responding in a negative way and trying to outlaw compassion. I think instead we should take this opportunity in a positive way and marshal the resources that we know are in the city to help make this a better operation. To pass a law that discriminates against the poor, to pass a law that targets one man feeding one group on one corner is doomed to an expensive, time-consuming legal process, the resources and energy in which could be much better spent helping Mr. Landreth find a place to do what we want him to do in a place we want him to do it. I have known Mr. Landreth for many years. I have participated not just with Mr. Labange's office, but with business, nonprofit, and church groups, all trying to find a better place for him to conduct this vital activity. It has been impossible at the community level to persuade, beg anyone to give him an inside location. Simply making it illegal and making it illegal all over the city is not going to either solve the problem of homelessness or solve the problem that Mr. Landreth can't find a better place to do this.
Please.
So I would, in closing, just urge this board to consider amending Mr. Labange's motion to direct it away from the law enforcement model towards a more constructive
embracing the community model in finding a collaborative solution. I would just note that on the Channel 2 News, despite the delicate wording in this motion, we are going to be known nationally as this once great city who outlawed compassion. Thank you.
Please, let's maintain Mr. Bass.
Thank you. No one is asking the council to outlaw care for homelessness, but I am at the corner of Sycamore and Romaine. We are a large facility, about 50,000 square feet, a growing business. We've put a lot of money into the building, and we spend a lot of time cleaning up after Ted Landreth. And one of the issues is not whether, I think we're mixing the cause, obviously it's a good one, with the impact on the community, property owners, employees, our tenants, the appearance of the community, and business growth. We have sent to Labange's office a list, a chronology of events documented for years of the impact of the food truck. The food truck may have a good purpose. At that corner, it's an impact that is so desperately out of balance with what it serves, it needs to change. For years, there have been efforts to find a place to change. But after years of having our building, our neighbors, our tenants, our employees enduring it, it's time for change. And you could look at this as enough is enough. There must be another place. If the council wants to feed homeless outside, it's time to move it. There are better alternatives and they can find them, but our property, our employees, our tenants have had enough, and it needs to change. And we have tried for years encouraging them with all sorts of things, including a large donation. They want to stay there. It's time to move. The impact on the community is too much, and that has nothing to do with the cause. We don't disparage the cause. We disparage, and we are concerned, and we must have action on the impact.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next up, let's invite Carl Scott, Jeff Dietrich, and Philip Farha. If you're with us, please come forward. Carl will pass. Okay. Mr. Dietrich. The floor is yours, sir.
Good morning, or good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Jeff Dietrich. I'm with the Los Angeles Catholic Worker. We operate a free soup kitchen in the Skid Row area, but we also serve on the street 2 days a week. And we face the same problems as the West Side Homeless or West Side Food Coalition, and we understand what's going on. I'm here to say that I support the West Side Food Coalition. I want to say that it's important to stop demonizing and calling. I've been called a homeless enabler, as I'm sure they have as well. Just because people are serving the poor doesn't mean they're homeless enablers. We're responding to a social problem, not just the personal problems of the people that are in our line. This is a larger social problem that needs to be addressed on a larger social scale. So when there are no more homeless and hungry people on the streets, we'll stop serving on the streets. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Farha?
I'm a resident and a homeowner on Sycamore and Waring. I've lived in my house for nearly 6 years. I have 2 young children, age 5 and 7. I have a stake in this neighborhood and I care about it. We have been severely and negatively impacted by this feeding program and by those it claims to help. Our garden has regularly been used as a toilet. Trash from the program has been regularly thrown in our front yard. The homeless climb into our backyard to comb through bins. We have suffered break-ins, and we had people climb into my cars and back house to sleep. On several occasions, my kids have stumbled upon used syringes and condoms on the sidewalks. A few months ago, a transient broke into the crawl space of my house where she attempted to make a home for herself while we were sleeping. Upon her removal, we found food items, likely from the program, and drug paraphernalia and matches. I just imagine if they would have been lit under the house. I support legitimate homeless organizations' programs and have volunteered for them myself in the past. I have helped start a school for socioeconomically disadvantaged children, and ironically, some of the food from this school has gone to this program, and it's come from us. We want to do good. We wanted to do good. So it's not right to say we don't care about social issues or the homeless. To say we aren't compassionate or inhuman is flippant and false. But this is a terribly run program. We don't want anybody not to eat. We do want the homeless to eat in dignity and not be forced to defecate in people's yards. This program degrades a historical neighborhood and endangers those who live there. Maybe it was okay 15 years ago, but it's inappropriate for the neighborhood as it is now. Please help us fix the neighborhood we love.
Thank you for your testimony. Let's invite up Deborah Lashever, Tim Harter, and Albert Torres.
Hi there, I'm Deborah Lashever. I just would like to mention a couple things. One, poverty is not a crime. Let's make that clear. Two, there is a huge shortage of food for people on the street that don't have city services available. That is very important to note. There are no services available to take up the slack of feeding people on the street. That is very important to note. People keep saying, just get them another place. Just go over here. That's not possible. Like they said, they've been looking for a place for how many years? It's because people don't want to give their property to homeless people. Three, Eric Garcetti said when he took office that he wanted to stop homelessness in Los Angeles by the end of his term. I don't think he meant by starving them out. This is an important program. The city is not taking the responsibility to feed people, to have bathrooms available. All the defecating on lawns and all the stuff that we're hearing about is because the city is not providing services that people need. It's a human right to have sanitation facilities, and we're not providing it. That's on the city. That's on us. We need to help. The people on the street need our help, and that's why we're doing it. This lays the groundwork for ordinances that are going on all across the nation to make feeding programs and feeding homeless people on the street illegal. It's had a lot of problems across the nation. You can Google it. This is not a good way to go. Obviously, Los Angeles is already called the cruelest city in the nation for homelessness. This is not going to help at all. In fact, it's not going to help anything. People are concerned about public safety for the people that are eating, supposedly. They're concerned about public safety right there. This is an emergency situation. In New Orleans, we didn't go, oh my God, wow, people might not want people to have services in their neighborhood. No, this is a crisis situation. We're forgetting this because we're not living on the street. We don't know how hard it is to live out there. This is a crisis in Los Angeles. We're responding to a crisis, not programs that we can, take months and years to put and get, in place. That's not going to happen overnight. And in the meantime, people need food or they're going to die. These programs are very, very important. This is NIMBY stuff, you guys. This is not in my neighborhood stuff. It's very obvious with the people that are speaking out against this that they support the homeless services, but not in my neighborhood. So let's take that into consideration. And also, one more thing I'd like to say is that Churchill and also Gandhi and many of other people have commented on this, and they have said that you can tell the degree of civilization of a society by the way they treat their most vulnerable members. And I'll leave it with that.
Thank you for your testimony. Tim Harter.
Hi, my name is Tim Harter. I am a field representative for Assemblymember Richard Bloom, where the state usually does not get involved in these issues. Assemblymember Bloom wanted me to come read a statement. He apologizes for not being able to be here. He asked that I read you this short letter for the record, which I'll then submit to the committee.
He's not in session. Where is he?
I don't know where he is. He sent me to read this, though. Here we go. Dear Chairman and members, I strongly support the motion by Councilmember Labange to draft legislation on non-commercial meal distribution, also known as food lines for the homeless, in the public right-of-ways to address public health and safety concerns generated by the Greater West Hollywood Food Coalition's nightly food line. In June, residents near the corner of Romaine and Sycamore contacted my office regarding their concerns relating to the Greater West Hollywood Food Coalition food line operation to feed the homeless. In the weeks that followed, my staff visited the area during the food line hours of operation. GWHFC's commitment to serving the needs of homeless individuals providing free meals is admirable. However, I strongly believe that the location of service is substandard. It should be relocated. Indoor, sanitary facilities that respect human dignity and co-locate supportive services are strongly preferred. As the former mayor and council member of the city of Santa Monica for over 13 years, I developed considerable experience and am well known for my work on the issue of ending homelessness in Santa Monica. In fact, Santa Monica has successfully transitioned several food line operations to indoor facilities connected to services that benefit the homeless. This effort took great skill and determination by all involved, but it has resulted in lasting positive change for the community. And most importantly, the homeless individuals who deserve and need our assistance in helping to end their homelessness. Thank you for your time and consideration of this motion proposed by Councilmember LaBonge. Please do not hesitate to contact my office or myself if I can be helpful in any other way.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Torres.
Yes. Hi. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Okay. So my name is Albert Torres, and I am a worker at a nonprofit organization that has an important contract with the media bid. They take care of the sanitation, of the cleaning. I myself have done this kind of work for the last 2-3 months now, since mid-July, and I used to go to school, and I have many friends in the Hollywood area. So for me, Hollywood is my second home, and I think I know very well the situation, what's going on here. Yesterday, when I heard on KCAL 9 about this plan ordinance, I couldn't believe it, and I thought to myself, well, just before the government shutdown, the House GOP passed an appropriations bill that would cut off the food stamps. Now, I just thought it was very surprising to me that there are accomplices to the House GOP, and it's right here in Hollywood, California. And as a worker taking out my crews out to clean the streets, and I understand there are syringes out there. I've documented it, I've reported it myself, but I believe that this kind of legislation is ham-fisted. It doesn't tackle the core need, the core situation, and instead covers with a blanket that suffocates the most vulnerable in the society. Already, the food truck has been denied using tables. I find myself disgusted at the indecency of denying, the table of brotherhood among the people who go out there in search of things to keep themselves sustained. And I just want to finish by saying, we have the Gay Youth Center on Highland, right? But it seems to me that it attracts our queer homeless youth. I myself have gone there very briefly. So my question is, if this food truck goes, then I got to make that connection. Will the youth center be next on the chopping block?
Thank you for your testimony. Tarsis Rodriguez, Robert Ladner, and Nicole.
Hi, I'm Tarsis. I'm a student. I work and I also volunteer when I find time available. One of my most vivid memories, I would say, is being quite young, maybe 6 or 7. I would really appreciate your undivided attention, but 6 or 7, and I was in a line waiting for a hot meal on a November day, possibly Thanksgiving. I can't really pinpoint if it was that or not, but I come from an impoverished family of 4, and we were homeless. We would sleep in cardboard boxes near Union and 7th, and while that is not Romaine and Sycamore, I can understand the difficulties in just being homeless in any situation, in any neighborhood, whether it's beautiful Hollywood or downtown LA or Pico Union. I just think that a lot of these people who are coming with complaints aren't really tackling what to do about the subject. They're just saying, not right here, not right now, let's do it somewhere else. But there really isn't any money for this is there? Just to open a new facility and just like have somewhere where people can be sanitary and just sit down, wash their hands, use the restroom. Where I volunteer, we set up outside in a public area, not the sidewalk, but we get to know the people that we serve, and they come to depend on us the way we've depended on other people when we're not at our most powerful state. And I think it's really unfair, and it's just almost heartless. And I think that the people who come here with a lot of money and power behind them are looking to embellish these streets that people are trying to protect from the homeless. But really, I don't think that the homeless is an issue of drugs and just categorizing them. I think it's more about finding an an actual solution for this problem. Thanks for the buzzer.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Okay, you may sit there. Robert?
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Leidecker. I just want to thank you for allowing the public to speak. I'm here because I'm concerned that you guys might take blanket measures that will negatively impact all citizens of Los Angeles. I'm a member of a group called Food Not Bombs, although I come to you as an individual and I'm not claiming to speak for the group.
Would you repeat the organization?
Food Not Bombs. We're a grassroots organization who believes that everyone should have access to healthy, nourishing food. For over a decade, we have been serving free vegan and vegetarian meals every Sunday night, rain or shine, in public spaces in downtown Los Angeles, including the sidewalks of Skid Row. We prepare all the meals ourselves from produce donated from Southern California farmers, and we typically serve around 200 meals a night. People who know us and rely on our meals include families, working folks, homeless folks, poets, veterans, etc. Some have been coming for years. While many have access to food from other avenues, I often hear that our meals made of fresh produce are in scant supply. Councilman Labange's motion says that serving food in the public right-of-way creates health concerns, while in fact the food we're sharing is a valuable contribution to the better health of many of Los Angeles' citizens. We also take care to clean up after serving, and we've never blocked pedestrian traffic. We believe it's important that food be shared in public spaces, as it removes all barriers and ensures accessibility to everyone, no paperwork required, no proof of need. Sharing food in public spaces also creates a sense of community. Placing restrictions on serving food in public right-of-way also walks a dangerous line of criminalizing humanitarian work, marginalizing a group of people, and placing restrictions on our right to assemble. As my representatives, I hope you'll support Angelinos who strive to make this city a better place. Sharing food in the public right-of-way is crucial to Food Not Bombs' mission, as well to the well-being of all the people we share meals with. And I just want to say, hopefully we can maintain the rights of the public in the public right-of-way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Good afternoon, Nicole Shahanian with the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. The Hollywood Chamber is here in strong support of the Labange-O'Farrell motion. The Chamber has been actively involved in addressing homelessness in the Hollywood community for many years. As part of the Hollywood Forward initiative, the Chamber has joined a coalition of community stakeholders striving to end homelessness in Hollywood through promotion of permanent supportive housing efforts. We were glad to see that the motion mentions permanent supportive housing in particular, and we believe that this is something that should definitely be looked forward to in the city. While sympathetic to the mission and work of the numerous nonprofit organizations that provide services to our city's needy, the Chamber has seen firsthand some of the unintended and undesirable impacts that some feeding programs are having to the overall public safety in the communities in which they are located. In Hollywood's media bid, as you have heard, the situation has become particularly concerning. The media bid is home to many entertainment companies that service high-profile celebrity and industry clients, and also serves as the current location for a feeding program that distributes food to hundreds of individual homeless. In the neighborhood adjacent to where the feeding program sets up, tenants have begun to pack up and relocate their businesses. The often high-profile clients of these businesses are no longer willing to come to the site for fear of their safety. The Chamber has received complaints from the business community that the feeding program participants loiter in the area and litter it with trash, needles, condoms, excrement, etc. The businesses regularly complain of fights and thus from their automobiles, and have reported that the homeless congregate in the vicinity of the feeding program and wander onto and through the surrounding properties with no regard for business operations, staff, or clientele. All of this is despite an increased police presence, which the LAPD has luckily afforded. Hollywood's ability to remain the entertainment capital of the world depends on our ability to attract new and vital entertainment companies to our community. Hollywood cannot afford the relocation of any further businesses or the loss of the jobs that come with this as we continue to look for solutions to our homeless problem.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Next, let's invite up Yelena Zeltzer, Josephine Burris, and Gabriel Gutierrez. Please come forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Yelena Zeltzer. I am a program manager at the Urban and Environmental Policy Institute at Occidental College. I'm also a member of several working groups of the LA Food Policy Council, and I'm here today to speak against the motion of Councilmember LaBonge. Our concern is that this motion will produce a blanketed policy or set of policies that prohibit or criminalize feeding across Los Angeles. I think we all agree there's definitely a need for public food distribution in Los Angeles, as many people remain vulnerable due to low incomes, high rents, and inadequate food access to food in our city. And we think that there is no evidence that public feeding causes or promotes significant public health or public safety concerns. There may be perceived concerns, and that should definitely be addressed. But this also seems like a issue that folks are speaking to is a localized issue in the Hollywood area, and the motion seeks to create a citywide ordinance of some sort. So I think there's two different issues here. I think the issue the local issue may be addressed without doing this citywide study. One more point is that I think that regulating or prohibiting public feeding or food distribution does not necessarily get at the core of the problem, which is homelessness, which is poverty. So the city would be much better served spending our time and our resources addressing these issues as opposed to trying to regulate or prohibit or somehow curtail public feeding.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Josephine Burris.
Hi, I'm Josephine, and I work with the Los Angeles Catholic Worker. And our community, we have the radical belief that homeless people are human beings, that they have equal rights as we do. And I've been listening to the concerns of people who are in favor of this motion, and what I'm taking away from what they're saying is basically you can serve the homeless people behind doors because we don't want to see them and we don't want to walk on a street beside them. We don't want to talk to them. So if you serve in the street, then you have to look at the ugly face of poverty and homelessness. And there's sort of the sense that, by getting rid of street serving, we're going to get rid of the homeless because the concerns people brought up are stuff like defecating in public and, drug use and violence. These problems are not caused by people serving food to the homeless on the street. These are problems that are caused by, social and economic factors like lack of housing, drug addiction, and so getting rid of street serving is not going to somehow, abracadabra, make our problems disappear. So we need to look at the social and economic issues, not people that are trying to treat them like human beings. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Please, Gabriel.
Good afternoon. My name is Gabriel Gutierrez. I'm an undergraduate at UCLA, and I am one of the coordinators for the Mobile Clinic Project at UCLA. We are partnered with the Greater West Hollywood Food Coalition. I'd like to just make some comments on the fact that the Food Coalition does not only offer food, it offers services, way more services than are actually even talked about or mentioned. The Food Coalition actually gets to know our clients and creates a sense of community, and in that process, in the past year, has assisted at least 20 clients get off the street and get into affordable housing. So let's look at it's not just that we're trying to that the Food Coalition is trying to just feed the homeless. We're trying to attack the bigger issue along the process and try to eliminate homelessness as a whole. And while it is a difficult task, we're at least making some effort, and that's what I want to highlight, that it is an effort, and it's doing a lot more than just trying to offer a play. We're trying to help this homeless in a bigger fashion, and to go deny that, to go against that, is just to go against compassion, and that's what that we offer on the streets, is compassion and giving them a voice, because the clients are a part of the community. Yes, they may not live in a house, but they still live in that area. They're still part of the community, and they just don't have a voice. And what us at Mobile Clinic and the Food Coalition, we're trying to not only give them a voice, but give them an opportunity to get off the street and live their lives and reintegrate into society, so they're not seen as someone that strikes fear into the hearts of the residents. They could be seen as a citizen, and most importantly, as another human being, because that's what we all are. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we invite up Francisca de la Rosa, Bilal Ali, and Linda Hess. Please join us at the table. You may begin.
My name is Francesca De La Rosa, and I'm with Works, Women Organizing Resources, Knowledge, and Services. We're an affordable housing developer that developed a comprehensive food justice program as part of several of our affordable housing communities. Now is the time that we should be coming together to develop real strategies to address poverty, hunger, and food insecurity. But I'm afraid with this motion we might be heading in the wrong direction. We have great concerns that in response to a local neighborhood issue, we are moving towards citywide policy that would increase punitive measures and place more restrictions on those simply trying to feed the hungry. The survival of food distribution lines are critical when programs like SNAP continue to be decimated and our local food banks and pantries are completely overwhelmed in meeting demand. Next week, many of us are going to be celebrating along with you Good Food Day, including myself. Unfortunately, celebrating Good Food Day while simultaneously exploring an ordinance that may prevent public feeding is definitely sending the message that some people are more deserving of access to food than others. I think we are better than this, and I believe working together we can find a more compassionate resolution to this local neighborhood issue. Let's move away from the stick approach, which is what we heard earlier today, and begin to address the systemic problems of poverty and homelessness. Let's not make it harder for the nearly 80,000 without shelter in the city to find food. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ali.
Yes, my name is Bilal Ali. I'm the statewide coordinator for the Western Regional Advocacy Project Homeless Bill of Rights campaign. One of our planks on our platform is the right to share food. Los Angeles has a history of discriminatory laws and ordinances. We can go back to the Okie laws. We can go back to the Ugly laws. And as you know, Brother Price, we can talk about the Jim Crow laws. My brother over here, Sadir, you know about Mexicans couldn't cross the tracks over here one time.
That's right.
So anyway, so these laws were put up to put people out of sight, make them invisible. This motion I strongly oppose from Councilman Member Labange is another discriminatory law that attempts to make homeless people invisible. It's not just moving them out of Hollywood into West LA or Culver City, but he wants to make it statewide. So people will be forced to continue to move. When does it stop? When does it stop? And restrictions that are placed on people sharing food, people providing that food, that would bring them under law enforcement is ludicrous. It's ludicrous. These are discriminatory laws. This motion does not alleviate hunger. It exacerbates hunger. And the worst thing and the sickening thing of it all, it criminalizes hunger. So I strongly oppose this law, and we should come up with solutions. Our highly paid, in some instances, overpaid city council, the most highest paid city council in the country, are lacking the political will to creativity and the gumption to come up with real solutions where we can eliminate hunger. We can eliminate hunger, not use law enforcement approaches, and not serve our puppet masters. You know, what I mean by that is that these laws are basically geared to continue to serve the few while the rest of us get shit on. Thank you.
Ms. Hess?
Good afternoon, Councilmember LaBonge, gentlemen, ladies. I'm the founder of a nonprofit organization that connects excess food to those agencies feeding those in need. Food safety is critical. What I'm asking you to strongly reconsider is the implementation of this motion. 2 weeks ago, I went to the Greater West Hollywood Food Coalition not to connect food this time, but to actually work in the food serving line. Because I had to see it for myself if the day came, and here it is, that I was going to stand here and tell you what I saw, what I experienced. I go to agencies all over Los Angeles County. I look at how safe and how their clients are getting their food and how the food is being connected to them, both from the donor and the recipient. 2 weeks ago, I showed up to a well-organized kitchen that loaded up the food onto box trucks, covered. It went onto tables, and then the tables were taken away. So they made sure that the surfaces that it went onto was food safe and clean. The clients were lined up, the guests, along the fence, not in the street. And I can tell you at all times that the traffic was flowing on both sides and all around us, as there were 180 people that we were putting food onto plates, handing it to them, that were gracious, kind, and appreciative of the opportunity to have 5 minutes that was just the normal in their day. And that made a big impact. I get calls every day from agencies who are now in a panic as the government shutdown impacts more food access. There are thousands of children that are going to school every day coming from the streets and homeless shelters, and the parents have no access to food. This program, although it may not be perfect to all of the things that it needs to hit, it has medical and legal opportunities for people to move on with their journeys. And I just ask you to please consider all of the ramifications. You can't just pull the plug on it. You have to really go there, take an hour, and do this. Put on the gloves yourselves and actually see what it does for people every day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Let's invite up Michael Hubman, Joanne Sullivan, and John Jackson. Please join us at the table. Mr. Hubman.
My name is Michael Hubman. I'm with the Right to Share Food Coalition, and recent scrutiny has been brought about by a handful of disgruntled volunteer and a handful of individuals. The Greater West Hollywood Food Coalition food line has been operating for 23 years and has served over 1 million meals. You talk about the public right-of-way. The public right-of-way is also the commons. The public right-of-way is thousands of miles of streets and sidewalks, and if you're homeless, that's all you have. And the people that perform these services that feed the homeless on the commons offer their selfless generosity, and the people that receive these services are being protected from destitution of hunger, which creates chaos and other problems in the community. When the homeless people gather for a meal, they have a chance to associate with one another and to associate with their peers and relax a little bit. And it may look bad to some people, but it's all they have. And we believe that sharing food outdoors and in public is protected by the First Association Clause of the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. We also believe that while the other people may feel they wield the authority of the sovereign, we do have the moral high ground on this issue. And It's not only biblical, but it's gospel that we should be helping to feed the poor and the least among us. I quote Matthew 25, the parable of the sheep and the goats. And the sheep come to a good end, the goats don't. Los Angeles has been named the meanest city in America, and we don't want to go back to that designation. And the plight of the homeless, it's not something you can just legislate away. And those who get out in front of this risk becoming the poster child for the feeding intolerant. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Sullivan, Joanne Sullivan.
Can you hear me? Yes, hi, my name is Joanne Sullivan. I became acquainted with the coalition 5 years ago. I was, as I see all the time in Los Angeles, you rent a room and you can have, unbeknownst to you, crazy people you're renting a room from. And I ended up on the street, thrown out of the house I just paid a month rent for, and it was not worth the nonsense because they were not right in their head, as is a lot of people. And that's sad because they can be better if they just take their medication. Bottom line, I was introduced to this coalition. The first night I was serving, this gentleman drove by in a big fancy town car and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're feeding the homeless." He pulled over, he said, "Do you need help?" He's got his 2 kids out of the car and they stood there with put gloves on their little hands and they were handing out the cupcakes and the desserts to our clients. And then he opened his wallet and said, "Here's $100 for your juice for tomorrow," because we used to have an unending supply of juice. And we have an unending supply of coconut water. I am a result of medical care that I would never have gotten had I not been introduced to the UCLA mobile clinic. And the bottom line is everybody is human being. And it's not only in West Hollywood. I can be downtown. I've been in the Valley. I've been in Beverly Hills. You see crap on the sidewalks everywhere, and it's not always dog crap. And that sounds disgusting, but it's true. And these are human beings, and they deserve care and respect. And I'd say there's about 2% of them that are, mentally unsound. But we have to work with that and deal with that and get them help, get them into evaluation and get them help because nobody wants to be homeless. I mean, hey, great thing happened to me today. I had to go and hide to take a bag. They're not happy to be here. We need to help them. We're all human beings. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, my name is John Jackson. I work with Hunger Action Los Angeles here in Los Angeles. And it just occurs to me that the timing of this could be a whole lot, just a whole lot worse. At the same time that they're about to cut food stamps, we decide that we want to stop feeding people on the streets. It just seems like we don't investigate and go further. I mean, it's some of the greatest people in the city are being forced to have to eat in some of these lines. I spend time from time to time going to some of these lines and talking with some of these people and just spending time helping to feed folks. For the last 13 years, I've been going to Sycamore in Romaine, Sycamore and Romaine, to do outreach for a feeding that takes place on Christmas Day, and I've been doing this for 13 years. And for that 13 years, I haven't seen any incidents of what we talk about. But what I have seen is that the line each year seems to become bigger and bigger and bigger. And so what that tells me is more and more poor people looking for places that they can go and eat at. Instead of limiting the places that people can go and eat, we should be opening up more places that people can eat, whether it's on the sidewalk or not. What I would like to do is challenge some of you to come and go with us on a day's tour throughout the city and look at some of these feeding lines that take place and actually participate in some of these feeding lines that take place throughout Los Angeles. And not just participate in it, but actually have some conversation and some dialogue with some of the people that are forced to be in these lines. It just changes the perspective. I understand that, there's this NIMBY attitude, not in my backyard, but even the backyard that one would say is mine, I think is claimed by everybody in the city. It isn't just one person that could say, well, we don't want you over here, we don't want you over here. Well, these are people that are not going to go quietly into the night. They're not going to just disappear because some people with some narrow-minded thinking, with some wishful thinking. But we're not going quietly into the night. We're actually going to make a stand and make sure that people are able to eat. And then, but let's enter into a dialogue instead of taking just one side's view, and we end up in rooms like this. We'd like to offer you an opportunity to come and go on a tour with us and take a look at and see some of the things that we see and experience some of the things that we experience. I'm a community organizer, an empowerment organizer around a whole host of other issues. But this is an issue that seems to kind of resonates with me because you look at folks that are just recently leaving out of foster care systems. You're looking at senior citizens that don't have anywhere else to go. You're looking at children that just graduating from high school or just leaving the foster care system. We need to be able to reach out and help them rather than trying to turn a cold shoulder to them. These are the same people that are going to be watching our kids, or going to be coaches at the school grounds that our kids are playing, or they should be anyway. But we need to give them a pathway to being able to do something productive in these communities that we come out of.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. We have.
But before I go, I'm sincere in my offer of asking for you guys to come and participate in one of these things. We can coordinate it together with somebody on your staff and just coordinate a day and just make a day of it and then come back and have another conversation about it.
Thank you for the invitation.
Could I have 10 more seconds?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't mean to mention this. It's a huge can of worms, but the reality is, if California hadn't passed Prop 13 back in '78, we would not be here, because that used to fund property taxes, funded privately owned homes that helped people in this situation.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. We have two more cards, please. Sylvia Arath and Dan Garza. Is Dan? Don. I'm sorry, Dan. Don.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Arath. I'm from Venice. I'm on the Venice Neighborhood Council, although I'm not speaking as a council person now. I'm speaking as an individual. And I'm concerned about this motion because I'm worried about it setting a precedent for feeding the homeless, which I think that Los Angeles does really not want to be known for something like that. My concern is, in listening to all these people talk, I guess during the 1980s, supportive services were sort of decimated, and so over the years, more and more people have ended up being homeless. In Venice, we have something called the Mellow Act, where new developers have to provide affordable housing units. I'm not sure if the developers that have spoken here are required to do some affordable housing units, but if the businesses, also what I've heard from business people, it's like if you have more businesses then you're going to have more revenue, and it's like the whole idea of trickle-down economics, which I think is shown not to work in our country very well. And I just wanted to say that it seems to me that some of the more wealthy people in the neighborhood could perhaps join forces and put together a fund to do some cleanup if they're really concerned about the mess that homeless people are leaving behind. But I think it's really important to have a place where homeless people can be fed and housed and stuff, and there aren't enough places that are not on the street. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
This thing working? This thing on?
It is. Pull it to you. Pull it up to you, sir.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now? This is a very dangerous situation we're in right now and as far as ordinance like this. I can't speak on for or against the ordinance, but I can say that it's wrong not to feed people. It is wrong because people like me with physical disabilities that were on the street and had to depend on others, I would starve to death because I won't beg. I'm one of the people who don't use drugs, don't drink, don't smoke, no, none of that. But believe it or not, I would not beg. So I would literally probably have died somehow, some way, but I found a way. The other issue is there's ways that we can mitigate a lot of these situations. I am on the Public and Health Committee of the Neighborhood Council in downtown Los Angeles. I've been there for 15 years and I've watched effort after effort after effort of this city to curtail homelessness in downtown Los Angeles. And it's come to the point where the business community has their hands tied because of lawsuits. There needs to be more research done on ordinances like this. We cannot keep moving forward and more forward and trying to legislate away these things because eventually the Supreme Court winds up, and these judges live in Bel Air. These judges live in Beverly Hills. So they're gonna make sure that all of these feeding lines happen in other parts of the city of LA, not within their communities, that they can control it. My thing is I'm very grateful that Gil Cedillo and Corinne Price are working with this together on this, along with others. It's fortunate that Gil Cedillo has been a big supporter of the homeless and trying to work with all avenues of the homeless community and those that profit from it. But homelessness isn't 9 to 5. These volunteers come out and they know, they bring what they have with them and they help and they do what they can. There's just so much to say. There's more to say than just the 2 minutes. Because homelessness is not 9 to 5 like these big organizations make it out to be. Organizations like this that volunteer can become an opportunity to work with the organizations, with the city, with those of us that don't need the $175,000 a year to work with. So these are opportunities, and I understand Gil Cedillo enough to know that he's going to find a way. He's the miracle worker as far as I'm concerned. He will find a way to make sure this city is not stuck with being the meanest city in the world and not feeding people, but also making sure that the people that make the money, the people that pay the taxes, and we all pay taxes because we pay sales tax. But the issue is that without those people paying taxes, the people like me and those of us that subsist off of them will not be able to grant it. So there's got to be somewhere in between that we've got to work together. I know I've taken too much of your time, Mr. Price, but I'm grateful. I'm very grateful that you two are actually leading this committee right now, and I don't think it's a coincidence, and I think maybe even Tom LeBron bringing up this ordinance at this time was probably something that had to be done, and now it's time to face this challenge instead of run away with it, run away from it.
Thank you for your comments. Let me thank everyone for your testimony. I think it's been thoughtful on both sides of this issue. The motion before us seeks to find that solution, to figure out how we address non-commercial feeding in public right-of-ways, a problem not just in Hollywood, a problem in other parts of the city as well. Members, any comments?
No, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for the extra long. You gave everybody time. Usually you have to be a strict 2 minutes. So I appreciate that, and I apologize for having to go to the Energy Environment Committee, but I had to make that move, which is down the hall, and came back, and I heard most of them speak. I think, is it Mr. Jackson? Yeah, said something very important. I'm coming out. I've been out, but I'm coming out. We'll come out. I'll talk to you. I'd like to continue this 2 weeks, or if not, at least within the next cycle, and look at options. I want to get people off the street, pure and simple. And where's Ted?
He's in the
Where's
back.
Ted? Can I ask you a question, Ted? Are you okay with me trying to get people off the street? Are you okay with me getting people off the street, getting them into a place where they can get full service? I want to get it off the street. Don, thank you for coming. Maureen, I appreciate all that you've done. Thank you, Ted. I want your commitment because our office has reached out to you and not had success. This was started in early part of the summer, Mr. Chair. This was started early part of the summer, and in the early part of the summer, we worked to try to find some solution and we're not successful. I did not want to put this motion in until the point where we all brought us all together.
I think we're together now, Mr. Labange. Are you willing to continue this? Is that
Well, I think
your
we
comment?
continue it because I want to assure them, because I'm very proud of work that I've done in this city for 40 years. And you look like that, and you make me want to help you. Okay? Look like that, you make me want to help you. But there was a little house over on 217 Belmont Avenue, and it has been expanded fully to the Good Shepherd Center with a new facility. There's a way, there's a will, if you want to work it. If you want to do it in the street, you're going to have a push, because people who live in the area, do business in the area, they want something from their city. You want something from their city. We could try to find common ground. We want to work at it. But if you want to just say you want to be in the street forever and ever, that is not going to be my objective. My objective is help you find a solution to meet people with great need and a variety of services. The Hollywood Chamber of Commerce is the only Chamber of Commerce, I think, in our Southern California area that reaches out, has an annual homeless count, has worked with all the social agencies to find solutions. I want to find solutions, and have provided solutions in other areas. But I think the fact that we don't look at who's around in the area, you want to say it's your right to do what you want to do on that corner? That's a question that I would like to discuss further with you, why it's important for health reasons and for the next success. We're all here for this period of time, and somewhere in the future. If we started this 26 years ago to find a permanent place in the East-West Hollywood area, West Hollywood pushed this out, and it went into an industrial area. There was no effort to find a place that people could come to. I'm very proud to step up on Vine Street, which is supportive homeless housing on Vine Street at Santa Monica Boulevard. We have another facility up on Sunset that we lost because of the CRA and et cetera. So I think there's an opportunity here, so we could hold it for 2 weeks. I know Mooster, the chairman of the committee, would want to probably hear this as well. We don't need to have a lengthy public hearing, but we could come back with some suggestion as what to go forward on. So that, I think, is the best solution for everybody, and we do want to be aggressive. Public health is very important on all our issues. So that's my request, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Mr. Labange, for your leadership and for your willingness to hold this over so we can continue the conversation. And so we will do that. Councilman Cedillo.
Mr. Labange, thank you for your leadership. You are responding to all your constituents, and that has to be acknowledged. Let me say this for those who don't know me. I spent 15 years in the state legislature working on this matter, one of the most vexing problems that faces this nation. It's very complicated and very complex. This is not something that will be resolved overnight. I thank Jonathan Jackson and I thank Don Garza for your guidance and leadership and your consultations over the years on how to address this problem. One thing about the city, different from the state, is that it always starts with a legal response. We always go to the city attorney first. And that's by design in many respects, and it makes it more difficult for us to focus on the policy issues that are in front of us. And these are really policy questions, and when a motion gets brought forward, it is from the start citywide. And so we have to be very careful and address the policy issues. And so one of the things that when we do come back, that we should focus on policy first and then on the legal second. Right? The law stands there and always there independently, always available for us, but the policy questions are the ones that we should focus on first. I would hope that, and 2 weeks may not be enough, you've done what was needed at the moment. It was to start this conversation, to bring these forces together. There's no prohibition from us doing this now, broadening the dialogue, broadening the coalition. But there are also, I think, legislative proposals that the city may need. Jonathan, you raised some of the questions that you know that I've been working on for years. How do we ensure that foster youth that get emancipated within 18 months are on the street? Half of them within 18 months are on the street. We know that. That's metrics. How do we address that? The same for those who leave custodies. Within a shorter time period, they're on the streets. That's just simple metrics. And so the question is, how do we address that now that the state has moving forward economically, now that the state has a balanced budget, now that the state has leadership that has demonstrated itself to be bold and courageous, like the governor, now that there is a majority Democratic majority, supermajority within both houses. The restraints that impacted those bodies in the past are no longer there. And now someone like Assemblymember Bloom, who he and I and a group of 35, 40 leaders from the community went to study this problem in New York, a community that seems to have more lessons for us in this area. Someone who now, former mayor, former council member, now Assemblymember Bloom, is in the legislature and can be our partner in working on this. We should look at that as part of this extended and broadened dialogue. Councilmember, I would suggest that some of the partners here who are going to be solution-focused should be part of the discussion. One thing I didn't hear, and I start with a presumption of good intentions. I start with a presumption that everybody has a good intention. And I didn't hear that here, and we need to move beyond that. One of the things that disappoints me coming back to the city is the tone and tenor of the discussion. For whatever position we take, we should recognize that everyone here in this room today has a legitimate interest. Homeowners, renters, business people, homeless providers, service providers, everybody here has a legitimate interest. We are not against each other, nor should we be. What we're looking for is solutions to very vexing problems. We're looking for solutions to address impacts, not intentions. All the intentions are good. What we're looking for is how do we bring value added to the best of intentions, and then how do we structure this so that we don't have the adverse impacts that people are bringing to our attention. These are very legitimate concerns. Very legitimate concerns. Public defecation, urination, vomiting are a problem for those people who have to engage in that activity. And those people should be treated with dignity and respect. But it's equally problematic for the homeowner, the renter, the parent, the child, for everyone in the community. All those perspectives are valued in this city and should be valued in this city. And so we have to lower the tone, lower the tenor, and let's be solution-focused. We know the problems, but we cannot get to those problems until we focus on the solutions. And so I would encourage all of us to do that. Some points were well raised, and this really is a question to the extent that we do look at the First Amendment, the questions of time, place, and manner. What are the appropriate time, place, and manner? And what they were and what they will be are two different answers, because things have changed and evolved. I'm very happy to be here with my colleague, Senator Price, because he has such a well-established reputation as an advocate for those who have been without, and has a great reputation for being a voice for those who have not had a voice. And so this is not the reason we ran, but we are here now. These are the problems that we are here to engage with now. And Councilmember Labange, I thank your leadership, because these are problems that we would not have had an opportunity to address and to confront head-on had you not brought this to our attention, had the courage and the leadership and the vision to bring this to us. And so I'll move the motion for the extension, but I also suggest that we should look at this, because we might not want to come back as quick. We may need more time.
30 days, is that okay?
30 days, fine. Good start.
That's good.
30 days is a good start, although I will say that these are problems which are...
But they're very impactful, and I think we could get on a, if
Good start.
ideally, we could be successful if we all come to a point to agree that there may be a better way to serve people, a better opportunity to open doors for people, and get in health issues as well. I'm for that, but that will be the challenge, and we'll do that. And I thank Assemblyman Blooms and his fine deputy for coming down here to City Hall.
Thank you. I think we've heard some important perspectives from both sides, and I think the willingness of parties to meet, to confer, to try to find some common ground is certainly evident. We appreciate the motion to continue this discussion, and we hope that it will provide a foundation, a framework for us to address the issues, not just in this community, but these are issues that exist in District 1 and District 9 throughout our whole community, and throughout our whole community. So again, we appreciate the comments this afternoon, the commitment that has been expressed and that it's evidenced in the activities that have been undertaken. And again, I think that having an opportunity to continue this discussion to make it inclusive of not only the organizations but government agencies that are involved will be one way of trying to find a path for an answer. And so we will move this, we'll hold this, continue this on for 30 days. And if there are no other comments, members, this meeting will be adjourned. Thank you.